Okay, when you hear the word Antichrist, what pops into your head? Probably some epic, super powerful villain at the end of the world, right? But what if that whole popular image is completely off? Today, we're going to push aside the Hollywood version and go directly to the original source to see what it actually says. Let's dive in. So, that's the big question we're tackling. Are we talking about one single epic villain, like the final boss for humanity? Or could the original meaning be something else entirely? To find out, we've got to look at the only place the word is actually used. And let's be fair, the idea of one ultimate bad guy is, well, it's compelling. It's dramatic. It makes for a great story. But the real question is it what the source material teaches? To find that out, we have to check the texts. All right, so to get some real answers, we have to go straight to the original documents. If we really want to understand what Antichrist means, we need to look at the verses that literally use the word. So what do they tell us? Okay, boom. Here is our first major clue, and this is from the first letter of John. Now, this is fascinating. The writer starts by saying, yeah, you have heard that Antichrist is coming. He acknowledges the rumor. But then he immediately corrects the record, saying, even now, many antichrists have arisen. Those words right there, many and have arisen, they change everything. Let's just put this side by side because the contrast is huge. What we've all heard is singular, one antichrist, and it's a future event. But what the text actually says is plural, many antichrists, and it's in the present tense for the writer. They have arisen. This wasn't about some distant prophecy. It was about something happening right then and there. And that leads us to a really crucial point. The source material isn't framing this as some far-off end times event. It's talking about a very specific problem that was happening in the first century, during the time of the apostles. And here's another passage from the very same writer that just hammers this point home. He talks about the spirit of the Antichrist, and then look at the timing he gives. Now it is already in the world. Again and again, the focus is on the here and now for them, not the distant future for us. So let's actually place this on a timeline, right? The opposition starts way back during Jesus' ministry. Decades later, the Apostle John is writing his letters, and he states, flat out, that many antichrists have arisen. In fact, he says his generation is living in what he calls the last hour. The entire context is deeply, firmly rooted in that first century world. Well, this brings up a pretty logical question, doesn't it? If the text is clear that there were many antichrists running around back then, who exactly were they? You know, the source material actually doesn't leave us guessing. It points to very specific groups of people who were actively working against Jesus and his followers during that exact time period. According to the Gospels in the book of Acts, the source points the finger directly at the established religious leadership of that era. We're talking about the chief priests, the scribes, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and their big ruling council, the Sanhedrin. These are the groups that are repeatedly shown as being anti or, against Christ. And here's just one crystal clear example from the Gospel of Mark. Jesus himself predicts that these exact groups, the chief priests and the scribes, would be the ones to condemn him. The source is incredibly direct about who the antagonists were in this story. So why? What was the deal? Why such intense opposition? Well, the source suggests it all came down to power. They saw Jesus as a major threat to their religious authority and their political stability. They were afraid of losing their influence over the people, and they were terrified his movement would provoke the Romans to come down hard on everyone. And this pattern of persecution didn't just end when Jesus was crucified. Not at all. As we can see here, the book of Acts documents how these very same groups kept up the opposition. They imprisoned the apostles, they oversaw the very first martyrdom of a Christian named Stephen, and then they kicked off a widespread persecution against the entire early church. It was a consistent, ongoing conflict. Okay, so this brings us to the real takeaway, the heart of the matter. According to the source, Antichrist isn't a job title for a single person. It's more like a position, a specific belief that automatically puts someone in opposition to Christ. And here is the actual definition pulled directly from those letters of John we've been looking at. An antichrist is anyone who denies that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. That's it. It's a doctrinal test, not a description of some future political leader. This verse from the second letter of John just makes it completely undeniable. First, notice the timing again. many deceivers have gone out into the world. It already happened. Then he gives that specific definition, the belief they were teaching, and concludes that this is what makes someone the deceiver and the Antichrist. So the conclusion from the source material couldn't be more clear. The term Antichrist is used to describe a type of person who holds a specific theological belief. It's not about a single person at the end of time. For the first century church, this was a present reality, not just a future prophecy. This whole thing just goes to show how important it is to check our assumptions against the original text. It really leaves us with a pretty big question. If pop culture and tradition can get this idea so wrong, what else might we be misunderstanding? All because we haven't gone directly to the source.